Hello guys, so in this video I'm going to be looking at the kidney, but more precisely I'm going to be looking at the structures and the location of the kidney. Alright, so the kidney is found at the back of the peritoneal cavity. Peritoneal cavity. So it is found at the back of the peritoneal cavity. That's this point here. That's where you can find the kidney, at the back of the peritoneal cavity. Now, let's draw the structure of the kidney before I continue. Let's assume this is the kidney. The bladder, the ureter. Okay. Now, the top of the kidney rests on a muscular layer or a muscular structure, which we call the diaphragm. So the top of the kidney rests on a layer or a muscle called the diaphragm. Now, this muscle separates the thoracic region from the peritoneal region. Okay, so the kidney touches the top of the kidney touches the diaphragm. All right, so having said that, it's also important to note that the right kidney is slightly lower than the left kidney. So if this diagram should be correct, would have a structure like this. Okay, this is what would have. The right is slightly lower than the left, and I will tell you why. That is because we have a very large organ found at the right part of the peritoneal cavity, and that organ is the liver. So you have the liver suppressing the right kidney. So the liver suppresses down the right kidney. That is why the right kidney is slightly lower than the left kidney. All right. So that is the location of the kidney. Now, another thing, the kidney is found very close to the residual ribs. So let's assume this is the vertebral column and you have the residual ribs. The residual ribs are also called the floating ribs. Now, these ribs, they are the last pair of rib in the vertebral column. Okay, so they are called residual or floating ribs. Floating ribs. Now, what's the function of that rib? It protects the kidney, but it doesn't really do a nice job protecting the kidney because it is very insignificant. It's very insignificant. So, what then protects the kidney? Wrapped around the kidney is what we know as the structural fat. The structural fat. There are two basic types of fats. We have the structural and the functional fat. Now, the functional fats are those fats you can find at your stomach region, maybe your laps region, and other parts of the body. Now, they are majorly concerned with, with production of energy, all right? But the structural fat plays a vital role in protection. So the structural fat is found around the kidney. What does it do to the kidney? It protects it. It protects the kidney. That's the function of the structural fat. So this is the location of the kidney. Now looking at the anatomy of the kidney itself, the anatomy of the kidney itself. So let's draw the kidney. Okay. Let's assume this is the kidney. Now the kidney basically is divided into two parts. We have the renal cortex and the renal medulla. So we have the renal cortex here, which is the outer layer, and the inner layer called the renal medulla. renal medulla. And the next thing that should follow in this diagram is the pyramids. Okay, so the pyramids, you have structures like this. These are the pyramids. These are the pyramids. Pyramids. And we have between 8 to 12 pyramid. Between 8 to 12 pyramids. So these are called the pyramids. The pyramids. All right. This is just for the diagram sake. They're not up to 8. Okay. But we have from 8 to 12 pyramid. Now, inside the pyramids are striations. Are striations found inside the pyramid. Now, the gap or the spaces between each pyramid is what we refer to as the renal column. The renal column. So this space here is referred to as the renal column. The renal column. Right? So what else do we now have? What else do we now have? Now, watch now. This renal cortex has an extension, and the extension of the renal cortex forms the renal column. I hope you understand. The extension of the renal cortex forms the renal column. So we have this extension here. We have this extension here. This extension here. We have the extension here. With the extension, it joins at this point. It joins at this point. Okay, and it opens up into a bigger tube. It opens up into a bigger tube, into a bigger tube, into a bigger tube, which comes down finally. Now, this tube is referred, this particular place where it's all opened up to is called the pelvis. Then, when you come down, you have the ureter. Okay, so this is just the anatomy of the kidney. Now, another thing happens. We have the renal artery. The renal artery enters from this point. The renal artery enters from this point, and it enters and branches into the renal columns. So it enters at this point and branches to the renal column. It branches into the renal column. It branches into the renal column and surrounds the pyramid. And surrounds the pyramid. So the diagram is becoming messy. That is the anatomy of the kidney. That is how detailed the kidney is. It surrounds the pyramid. Now, there are other extension blood vessels. Now, we have them connected to the renal artery that entered the kidney. Now, these are not called arteries anymore. They are called the afferent arterioles. Afferent arterioles. Now, this is the point that starts the nephron. This is the point that starts the glomerulus. Okay, so in my next video, I'll be talking about the nephron. the glomerulus, the Bowman's capsule, the Henle's loop, and the collecting ducts. Okay, so this is the anatomy of the kidney. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in my next video.